My name is Elaine Harper, and 2 weeks ago, I disappeared. It didn't look like much from the outside. No screaming, no broken dishes, or storming out. Just me, standing at the edge of the kitchen doorway, holding a chipped mug of cold tea, while my sister Morgan pointed a manicured finger in my direction and said, "You've ruined our lives." And the worst part wasn't the accusation. It was how our parents nodded, like it was true. I didn't defend myself. I didn't cry. I just turned around, walked down the hall to the guest bedroom they begrudgingly offered me, until I got back on my feet, and packed the essentials. My old college backpack still smelled faintly of ink and worn leather. I didn't bring anything sentimental. No framed photos, no letters, no birthday cards. I had kept for too long. I left the memories where they were, unopened, unimportant. 15 minutes later, I stepped out into the cold North Carolina evening. My breath fogged in the air, but the silence around me was thicker than the temperature. I walked 2 blocks to the gas station, bought a granola bar and a bottle of water, and asked the cashier about the last bus into Charlotte. 8 minutes, if he's on time," he said. He wasn't, but I waited anyway, sitting on the metal bench like a girl waiting for the last ferry off an island where no one remembered her name. The bus ride was slow, the city lights smeared across the window like watercolor paint left out in the rain. I kept my eyes low. I didn't want a connection, not even the pretend kind. When the bus hissed to a stop downtown, I stepped off and found a motel with a flickering neon sign that read Shady Pines Inn, half the letters missing. The man behind the counter didn't ask for my story. He handed me a key marked 7B, never looking away from his reality show. The room smelled like bleach and old regrets. I dropped my bag at the foot of the bed and sat on the edge of the mattress. It groaned beneath me, loud in the quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't scroll my phone. I just stared at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a broken heart. Or maybe a dying star, depending on how you tilted your head. It wasn't until the next morning, when my phone finally buzzed, that I realized how completely I'd disappeared. 14 missed calls, all from home, all from the same people who'd sat in silence while Morgan blamed me for the fall of her world. I didn't answer. I just turned the phone face down and looked at the motel's ceiling again, the stain still there, unchanged. That same morning, as the sun rose dull and gray, I counted the money in my wallet. 270 13s. No job, no plan, no place to go. But somehow, the emptiness felt like space, not doom. I pulled on my jacket and walked into downtown. A small cafe near the bus depot had a chalkboard sign that read, "Free Wi-Fi, coffee refill all day." That was all I needed. Inside, it smelled like burnt toast and bleach. I bought the cheapest coffee and took the table closest to the wall outlet. My laptop was old, but still breathing. I opened it and logged into a tutoring site I had bookmarked years ago, but never had the nerve to use. My profile was still there, dusty, outdated, untouched. I updated it. Subject expertise, SAT, ACT, essay support, study strategies. About me. I believe in showing up, even when no one else does. By noon, I'd applied to 17 listings. Teenagers are drowning in college prep, single parents trying to help their kids navigate essay prompts and algebra tests. I saw them, really saw them, in ways my family had never seen me. Around 2 p.m., I paused. Something caught my eye. In the corner of the cafe, a small girl, probably 16, with pink earbuds and a notebook covered in stickers, looked like she was crying behind her laptop. She reminded me of me. Not the me who just left home, but the me at 14, sitting on the porch steps while Morgan threw a tantrum inside, and no one noticed that I was holding my math trophy, hoping someone would ask. No one ever asked. That evening, back in my motel room, I turned my phone face up for the first time. That's when the second notification hit me like a punch. Reminder, Mother's Day gift from Elaine delivered 2 years ago. The gift I'd mailed, tissue paper wrapped, hand-picked silk handkerchiefs, with her initials monogrammed in rose thread. never opened. Just like me. I shut off the phone. Not out of anger, out of quiet knowing. It wasn't just that they never opened the gift, they never opened me. The next morning, I opened my laptop like it was a lifeline. The cafe was half empty. I ordered the same $1.75 coffee, sat in the same corner, and plugged in. By now, I had 4 responses: 3 parents looking for writing support, and 1 adult student studying for her GED. I replied quickly, politely. I didn't beg for work. I just offered it, clearly, confidently. The GED student's name was Jordan, a 30-something woman from Raleigh who said she wanted to finally finish what high school never let her. Her message was short. If you're patient, I'm willing. I smiled, just a little. That afternoon, I walked 2 blocks to the downtown public library, where I could use a Chromebook for 2 hours at a time. It wasn't much, but it worked. I wore the same coat from yesterday and sat at the farthest cubicle where no one would look twice at a woman trying to build something out of nothing. And then, while uploading an old outline I'd once designed for test prep, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A shared Google Drive folder labeled Success Blueprint Drafts. I clicked, and my chest tightened. The formatting was identical to what I'd created 3 years ago. The tone, the flow, the diagnostic test rubric. It was mine. Only now it was labeled under Morgan Harper Coaching Academy. My sister's name was watermarked across the header in bold blue script. She hadn't just erased me, she had stolen from me. I blinked hard, closed the file, and leaned back in my seat. The library light above me flickered for a second, and I wondered, how long had she been doing this? Later that night, in the motel, I reached for the envelope tucked into the corner of my backpack. It was one I had mailed to my mom last year for her birthday. Inside, a handwritten letter and a cafe gift card I'd saved for weeks to afford. It was never opened, just left in her desk drawer, beneath expired coupons. My friend Lena, who had dropped it off for me, found it by accident. She hadn't meant to snoop, but the truth was sitting there like an unwanted relic. You never meant enough to be opened, I whispered aloud. I stared at the envelope. My name on the front, in soft cursive, my mother's favorite pink stationery inside. The words I wrote came back to me like a memory I didn't ask for. If there's still a space for me, I'd like to sit there again. Not asking for everything, just a call back. I miss our Tuesday talks. I miss you. I folded it up and placed it beside the motel lamp. They had never responded. Not to that. Not to me. The next morning, as if the universe was timing it for maximum cruelty, Morgan posted a new photo. I saw it while checking my tutoring messages. It wasn't just a family selfie. It was the new family portrait. Morgan at the center, flawless and glowing. Mom was beside her, wearing her favorite cream sweater. Dad, a few inches behind, stiff but smiling. And even Scout, the golden retriever, they got after I moved out. Everyone looked like they'd just walked off the set of a Hallmark ad. Everyone, except me. Because I wasn't in it. The old portrait, the one we took when I was 16, standing stiffly in my green sweater, smiling too hard, was gone. Replaced with this polished, airbrushed lie. No trace of me, no mention, no edge of a frame where my elbow might have once existed. It was as if I had never belonged. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the zoom button. Then I scrolled. Post after post. Throwback to the good old days. Family dinner last Sunday, grateful for my tribe. And in each one, either I was barely visible, blurred, cropped out, shadowed, or not in the picture at all. It wasn't new. It had always been this way. I remembered being 9, standing on a stool at church so I wouldn't be too short in the group photo. Morgan joked, "Elaine always looks like she photobombed us." Everyone laughed. Mom said gently, "She's just shy," but then moved me to the end anyway. Out of frame was easier. Back in the motel, I felt that same slow heat rising in my chest. Not rage, not sadness. Something deeper. Like watching someone toss away a letter you wrote with your whole heart and realizing They never even opened it. That night, Lena came back. I hadn't expected her. She stood at the doorway with tired eyes and a bundle wrapped in a dish towel. "Elaine," she said, her voice tight. "They told me you were in trouble. I didn't believe them, until I saw this." She stepped inside cautiously, like crossing that motel threshold meant betraying someone. She set the bundle down on the counter and unwrapped it. Inside were printouts, pages from Morgan's new Success Academy, curriculum charts, study plans, the very rubrics I had spent months refining. "I used to help you build these," Lena said quietly. "I know your voice." She didn't just lift your layout. She used your text, even your sidebars. My hands trembled, but I stayed still. Even my diagrams, even my margins, even my section headers. Lena looked down. "She said you gave them to her," she added, almost apologetically. But I knew that was a lie. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask why. Because I already knew. They didn't think I mattered. Not enough to open a letter. Not enough to be remembered in a photo. Not even enough to keep my name on the work I built. That night, I pulled out a sheet of paper from the motel notepad and started making a list. Not of what they did wrong, but what would I do right now? By the next morning, my list had grown into a blueprint. It was taped to the motel wall, half in ink, half in highlighter. On one side, quotes, dates, screenshots. On the other hand, plans, deadlines, and reminders. At the top, I'd written a sentence that sounded like something my grandmother once whispered to me, back when I was still small enough to sit beside her on the porch swing. "You build quietly until they can't ignore it anymore." Her name was Margaret Elkins, but to me, she was always just Grandma Maggie, a retired school teacher who kept every student's thank you card in a cigar box beneath her knitting needles. She taught me how to write lesson plans before I even understood fractions. She also left me something I'd forgotten until I scrolled deep into an old cloud folder labeled Curriculum Archive. And there it was. Will Maggie Elkins Final. Scanned, notarized, digitally stamped. In it, a clause I'd skimmed once but never understood fully. All educational materials, tutoring frameworks, diagnostic tools, and curriculum co-developed with Elaine Harper shall remain solely hers, unencumbered and protected by intellectual rights. She had seen me, even when no one else did. And just like that, I had proof that what Morgan stole wasn't hers to steal. I printed it the next day from the library and taped it on the motel wall, right next to the screenshots Lena gave me and the unopened envelope from my mother. One document typed, one printed, one handwritten. Together, they told a story, one that was about to be heard. That same day, I booked a consultation with an intellectual property attorney in Austin. Her name was Camille Jordan, and she had this quiet fire about her. No frills, no games, just questions and action. When I showed her the documents, she barely blinked. "You don't need to sue," she said, flipping through the pages. "You need a notice of claim. Make it public. Make it official. Let the silence speak legally." I nodded. When I left her office that evening, the sunset was cutting orange streaks through the sky, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to power. Not revenge, not even justice, just ownership of myself, of my work, of my voice. That night, I sat on the motel bed with my laptop in my lap. I didn't rehearse. I didn't polish. I just clicked record. The webcam flickered on, dim light spilling across my face. No makeup, no filters, just me. I started with the clause from Grandma Maggie's will. Read it aloud, voice steady. Then I screen shared the original documents with timestamps. My lesson drafts, my diagrams, the rubrics. The matching rebranded versions are now hosted on Morgan's site. And finally, the email from Morgan's PR rep. The one that said, "Let's keep Elaine out of it. She's emotionally volatile, not good for brand cohesion." I didn't scream. I didn't explain. I ended with, "They erased me, But I saved receipts. I clicked upload, and I let it go. The first few responses came quietly. Old tutoring clients. A teacher I used to substitute for. A mom from San Diego, whose son I'd coached into college, sent an email that read, "You didn't just help us academically, you helped me believe my kid had a chance." But the flood hit around midnight. On TikTok, a blogger stitched my video. On Twitter, screenshots began circulating. On Reddit, someone posted a side-by-side of Morgan's site and mine with the caption, "Textbook case of erasure." By morning, my inbox was a wildfire. Support, applause, stories, other women, other sisters, other daughters, people who had been made invisible by family, by bosses, by people who said they loved them while quietly rewriting their stories. And then the call came. I knew the number before I answered. Mom. Her voice was tight, but not angry. Just tired. Elaine. We didn't know it went this far. We didn't know she'd... Her voice cracked. Just please. Can't we settle this without making it public? I didn't respond. Because it already was public. The same people who cropped me out of pictures now wanted to crop out the consequences. A few hours later, Camille called again. "We've received a cease," she said flatly. "From your sister's team. They're trying to get your site suspended." I stared at the wall. The note from Grandma. The screenshots. The will. "They're not going to win," I said softly. That afternoon, I recorded a second video. Not a rebuttal, a counterclaim. I walked viewers through every original document, every timestamp. I showed early drafts from 4 years ago. I explained that I wasn't after drama. I just wanted the work I built to be mine. No dramatic music, no hashtags, just the truth. The next day, I received a certified letter. Inside, a proposed settlement, a non-disparagement clause, a 6-figure check in exchange for silence, no ownership, no credit, no public acknowledgement, just hand over the money. I didn't hesitate. I fed it through the motel shredder, slowly, deliberately, watching as each line turned to confetti. Then I posted a single image on my website. My name is Elaine Harper. I don't owe anyone silence just because we share blood. I won't sell my voice to buy peace. Not this time. By midnight, it had gone viral. The noise came fast and louder than expected. Morgan tried to regain the narrative. She posted cryptic stories on Instagram. Funny how people show up when the spotlight does. Then, hours later, blood is thicker than lies. But the internet wasn't buying it this time. An anonymous former intern, someone she'd fired, apparently without notice, shared screenshots of their Slack threads, lesson plan drafts, Canva templates, even meeting notes that referenced my name in the early brainstorming stages. It was all there, my fingerprints all over the foundation Morgan had repainted to look like her own. That night, I sat in the quiet of my new apartment, small, 2 rooms, but clean and mine, with a cup of peppermint tea and my laptop open to a single file. Final notice, claim of intellectual property. I hadn't sent it yet. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to make sure I was sending it for the right reasons. Not to destroy her, just to free myself. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Camille, my attorney. "They filed a formal injunction," she said calmly. "They're asking to block your site permanently, claiming it's defamatory and misleading." I exhaled. Not from shock, but from recognition. This was the swing they always saved for last. Not a conversation, not reconciliation. Just paperwork dressed as punishment. And yet, I was calm. I had my paperwork too. The will, the curriculum, the timestamps, the receipts. I opened my site and uploaded a new page labeled Ownership. It featured nothing more than the will, notarized and signed, alongside the original content dates and a statement that read, "All materials and instructional design presented on this platform are the sole creation of Elaine Harper and protected by legal documentation. Attempts to silence that truth will not succeed." That night, I didn't check my email. I didn't scroll through Reddit or Twitter. I simply brewed tea, turned on a quiet jazz playlist, and watched the steam rise from my cup. The next morning, the storm broke. Morgan's site was flagged. Not by me, but by a coalition of educators and advocacy groups for misrepresentation and copyright abuse. Her academy's newsletter subscribers started unsubscribing in droves. One mother even posted publicly, "I paid for a program that turned out not to be hers. My daughter failed her SAT because the content didn't align with what was promised. I want a refund and an apology." It snowballed from there. And through it all, I said nothing. Because the truth doesn't need an encore, it just needs to be visible. Later that week, I got a knock on my apartment door. It was Dad. Alone. His face looked older than I remembered. Slower. "I didn't know how bad it was," he said. I didn't know what to say." I didn't invite him in, but I didn't slam the door either. "You knew enough to stay silent," I replied. "And that said everything." He nodded, gaze low. "Your mom's not handling this well." I sighed. "Neither did I, for years." He didn't argue. He just left an envelope on the doorframe and turned back toward the elevator. Inside, a faded photo. It was me, 17, sitting beside Grandma Maggie on the porch swing, notebook in hand, smile crooked, hair windblown. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "Elaine and the one who always believed in her." I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it on my desk. That same evening, I received a message from the College Prep Foundation of Texas. They'd seen my work. A grant was available, enough to turn my curriculum into a statewide pilot program for underserved communities. "You've built something important," the coordinator wrote. "We'd like to help it grow." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the email, not because I doubted it, but because, for once, I didn't. I believed it. That night, I called Lena. "Think we can find that cafe near the library again?" I asked. She laughed. "Only if you promise not to disappear again." "I'm not the one who vanished," I said. "I was just never seen." We met up the next morning. 2 coffees, 1 sunrise, and a soft kind of peace that felt real. By afternoon, Camille called with final news. Morgan had backed off. Her legal team withdrew the injunction. The site could stay up, untouched. "But there's more," Camille added. "They're offering a second settlement. This one includes full public credit, official apology, press release if you want it." I paused. "I don't want their apology," I said. "I want my name where it belongs." Camille smiled on the phone. "Done." I clicked open my website one last time, updated the footer to read, "Created by Elaine Harper, curriculum author, tutor, survivor of silence." It felt small, but it also felt like everything. It didn't happen all at once. This new life. There was no applause, no tearful reunion, no sudden sense of wholeness. Just slow, quiet steps forward that felt less like winning and more like becoming. I moved into a small second-floor apartment above a bakery in downtown Asheville. The floors creaked, and the paint chipped in one corner, but the windows caught the morning sun just right. I bought a desk, cheap but sturdy, and placed it by the window. That's where I built my tutoring sessions, course content, and lesson videos. When all I